Hi, everybody. Welcome to Business Lunatics, the weekly show where four fearless loonies pull back the curtain on the wild, the wonderful, and the sometimes downright ridiculous world of entrepreneurship. No fluff, no BS, just straight up business madness. We're missing one of our loonies today, Steve, but that's okay. We have the other three loonies here to talk today about elevating your brand to help improve your sales. Um, Rochelle, take it away.
Okay, so many brands. I mean, my own, I've seen so many with others. They're pretty flat. They're so generic. There's nothing enticing about it. As a matter of fact, some are so dull that they can put, Sominex out of business. If you've got any kind of sleep apnea, sometimes all you need to do is look at something for 2 minutes and it'll put you to sleep. So one of the things that I like looking at is, what do you want to be known for? And when I think about that, I think about, are you storytelling or boring telling? Did you just tell me a story about your business that story highlights your level of expertise? It's not like you're generic. It's showing me, how did you pull a rabbit out of a hat? What was that high level skill that you told me during that story that I'm going to connect to it? I'm going to relate to that. And most important, I'm not going to forget it. If you give me facts and figures, I'm going to forget it faster than the speed of light. However, if you tell me some sort of a spicy story, the chances of that sticking to it is pretty long. So I want to ask you, some of those stories, how do you pull a rabbit out of a hat? Create a dynamic story around it, and so many people will remember that, and that will absolutely elevate your brand. So with that, like Freddie, take us on what you're suggesting and what your background and where you've had a lot of success with clients and elevating their brand.
Well, thanks, Rochelle. It's really storytelling is the key, but it's really leveraging the engagement of your customers and having them tell the story of how you've been able to help transform their business. And so now it's a third party that's actually talking about what you've done for them. So it's not about you saying how wonderful you think you are. You've actually got a customer or customers sharing the story. And one of the things I saw when I was working at one company, which was a great strategy and it connected emotionally, and I was connected emotionally, was it was an agency that was working with special needs kids, and a lot of them were English, non-proficient English speakers. And so it was a competitive interpreting company, but the way they did their marketing was they were behind the scenes. So they were the magic that was helping this entity working with these special needs kids and helping them communicate through the tools that they provided for language interpreting. But it wasn't about how wonderful they were. It was really about they were the glue that made this agency successful. So really what it did is elevated both organizations. It highlighted how this agency was helping with these kids, but the way they were able to do it was because of the services provided by this company. So it was a W for both organizations.
Right.
And you guys are both right in terms of your approaches. I mean, yes, you want your customers to be the reference, right? You want them to be the ones giving the referral and telling their own story and their own experiences in working with you. And on the other hand, you as a company have to know what is your message. And in other words, what Rochelle was saying is, what is your story that you're putting out to the market? Because without the story, without the references, without the referrals, or maybe I'm not using the right word. I should say recommendation. So without the recommendation, without the story, your brand will continually suffer. And my position on this is this: without that story, without those recommendations, it takes your sales guys 10 times more work to close the deal. And that's the problem that we run into when it comes to businesses. So what we need that story, we need those recommendations, need that marketing foundation that's on that's out there to be able to support the sales team. or for that matter, even the business development team. And I do
Sure.
separate business development from sales. They're two completely different disciplines in terms of one is about networking and building relationships. The other one's about closing the deal. And so you need marketing for business development and sales. You need marketing and business development to support sales. But more importantly, none of that works unless there is a story that is backed up by recommendations. That's really what
Yeah.
it comes down to.
And years ago, you bring up a great point, Melih, is that years ago, when I was in charge of global sales for a software company, what I did is we gave software away free to what we call beta testers back then, with the understanding that we would track what was happening with the technology in their business. And then I would go to editors for the specific magazine publications, and they would reach out to this customer and get all the data of how this was impacting their business. And they would write a story about our product being utilized at this tool and die manufacturing mold maker. And
Mhm.
that became my sales tool as a salesperson because now I had third party endorsement saying from, an editor talking to a company, they wrote it, and that I used that as my marketing collateral.
Rochelle?
Yeah, third party is big. Third party is definitely big. But I think we've got to, get clear on who is the third party. Not every referral or not every testimonial is a great testimonial. If I have an industry that I really don't do anything about, don't do too much with, and they start saying something, it just doesn't hold the same weight. I think we have to nurture the relationships and create the stories around the people that can leverage what we're doing. So it's not just a one off, it's we're creating a community within a community. I really believe in a lot of what I call power partners. Who is the person or the industry that's doing business right now with your exact client? So the two of you together can work with each other's either each other's databases, each other client bases, and it's the idea of 1 + 1 is 11. You can
Sure.
navigate trust. You're leveraging somebody's trust. You're leveraging their experience. They have the door open for you already, and vice versa. You can do it with them. So I love looking at what are some key marketing people in my particular area that is doing business with the client that I want to do business with. That literally reduces my sales opportunity by God knows how much.
Yeah, anything you can do to shorten your sales cycle. That's
Well, what you got is you're
that's
getting
like
a
at the top
third
of the
party
list.
and you're getting a third party endorsement right off the bat because now they're saying, hey, this is my partner, and I'm marketing into my database, promoting my partner. And then you do the reverse, you reciprocate and you promote your partner into your database, which is what you're talking about, collapses the whole sales cycle because you've already got validation from that person that you are a reliable business. And that's a very clever way to maximize your branding without spending a ton of money.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
JV
I mean,
partners are
yeah,
huge.
go ahead.
Good, I'm sorry, Melly. It's joint venture partners are huge.
Yep.
They're huge.
Yeah,
They
joint venture partners, right? Referral partners, joint venture partners, using your customers to, to work through this. I mean, going to your point, Rochelle, or at least perhaps parallel to it, it's your target audience doesn't care what you do until they understand why you do it.
Right.
How does it change their life, that, or how does it change their business, right? And I said life, interesting enough, kind of offshoot, but perhaps life is an interesting word to use, because at the end of the day, your contact person, your person who is your customer within that business, if you can help improve their life, in other words, reduce their stress that they have in their job, then you are likely to get their attention. But you have to be able to tell that story to them. How am I going to change your life? How am I going to reduce the stress that you have in in your job? And that comes down to that story that you're talking about, Rochelle.
And you
Oh,
got to do it emotionally. You got to connect with them emotionally from that story, because you're right. It's life, and at the end of the day, I always use the same example. Sir Richard Branson. There is no difference between work and personal time. It's called life. And so
Hmm.
we really need to start looking as there's no selling B2B, B2C, and all that stuff. That doesn't mean it's nonsense. Really, you're selling people or selling to people. At the end of the day, that's what you're dealing with. And so you've got to connect with them emotionally, and you've got to help. Your brand has got to resonate with that individual.
yeah, I love it. Is that one of I think we all have the same thing in mind. We love to make our clients look like a hero. And it's such a win-win for everybody.
Right.
If
Yeah.
they
I
look like
agree.
a hero, they come back and say, "Oh my God, Rochelle, you're the closest thing to Mother Teresa. I can't believe you." Da 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 da. When we make them look like a hero, it has such a ripple effect. It carries much more credibility and long term, whatever you want to call it. It
Well,
just
that's what I call them, is you create super fans, and those super fans tell
Right.
everybody about how wonderful you are and how you've transformed their life. And that's really,
Right.
and once you get that momentum going, it's contagious.
the other thing is,
Let's go back.
go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was going to say, go back. Let's go back to the Richard Branson quote. Say that again,
Yeah, the
Freddie.
Richard Branson quote is basically there's no difference between work and personal time. It's called life. So
Okay.
you're living, whether you're working or at home, you're still alive, you're still doing it. So they're intertwined. And that's what he's trying to say, that, it's not that I'm working for 8 to 5 and then I flip off and change personalities and I'm going home. It's
Right.
like I'm living. Hello. And so
Right.
be present. Bottom line of the message is be present because you're living.
Right. 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 Okay. No, that's a good one. I think
I like it.
folks like Richard Branson have a lot of great quotes out there, and like for example, the one that kind of flows with what I was saying earlier is that people will forget what you said, and forget what you did. Yeah, but they won't forget how you made them feel.
Yeah,
And
that's
this one's
Mar
also from
that's
Richard, right?
it's no, it's not Sir Richard Branson. It's a
This that
woman.
was this somebody else's.
It's a woman that
Okay.
I can't think of her name right now, but it's a woman that created that quote, and I've heard that many,
And
many
that quote,
times.
right? But and that quote is, that ending of that quote, meaning that they'll never forget how you made them feel, right? And I think that goes back to what I was saying earlier. Is part of your story being able to tell your target audience that you're going to reduce the stress in their job? In other words, you're going to change how they're going to feel. You're going to make them feel better, right? And going to this quotes point, that's the one thing they'll never forget.
Right. Yep.
Oh,
I think
It's
absolutely.
that yeah.
it's transformative for the business because, one of the things that I used to do when I was selling manufacturing technology was really talked about where the company wanted to go. What was their strategy? What was their pain points? What was costing them money? What was holding them back? Those are the conversations I was having with them. And it really became more of a strategic conversation. My brand is, we were known as, one of the best manufacturing software products on the market, but I wasn't pushing that. I was pushing more of where do you want to go? Because this is a tool that may or may not help you get to where you want to go.
The other thing is,
Rochelle,
oh,
to your point of storytelling and boring telling, I mean, again, I'm kind of going down the same path here. At the end of the day, you're trying to stir emotion, right? I mean,
Right.
that's basically what you're saying with your quote about storytelling versus boring telling.
I wanted to have, I think that when people talk about their business today, they're so generic. Somebody says, I'm into marketing. So what does that mean? I don't know.
Mhm.
I'll give you a great example. I worked with an accountant ages ago. Like an accountant, can you get more boring? Alan, the accountant. Hello, hello. Let's get more boring than that. Hello. So how do
Sure.
we say that? So we said something like, numbers tell a story. And are they exciting? Are they
Hmm.
are they exciting? Are they growth? But let me tell you, on my, are they exciting? Are they great? But on my watch, they're never going to be tragic. So now, if I can't read my P&L statements, this guy's going to have my back. He's going to make
Right.
sure that I understand the story of numbers. I will. I mean, that's the way I'm going to remember somebody in accounting. I'll give you another one. I work with
Yeah,
this
that's
is
a
a
good
good
point.
one. I work with somebody. She's a divorce attorney. Hello, I mean, yeah, but a divorce attorney. So there's great ways that you want to grab attention. So I told you, let's use songs. So we said, that great song by the Beatles. The Beatles said it right. All you need is love and a
Right.
prenup. All you need is love and a prenup. Well, guess what
But,
happened? They remembered her. And guess what? She started selling prenups. She only focused on her divorce business. Her prenup was so much more profitable. It took so much less time. And she created an emotion. All you need is love and a prenup.
yeah.
Now, if
All
you're going
right,
to
so
meet 4 or 5 different attorneys, you're going to remember them more than somebody else.
Sure.
Tell
unfortunately, in
a
this
story.
case.
Hmm.
We're
I
telling a
agree.
story. I mean, I've got dozens of these. We're telling a story. A lot of times people ask me, like, what do you do? And I'll say, God Almighty, clients come to me because, let me tell you, they feel that they're working 8 days a week. And boy, have they had a hard day's night. And they realize finally help, they need somebody, help, not just anybody. And I'm
Yeah.
so happy to say they're breathing again
We
when
got
they can imagine when things are back on track. The biggest word
right.
you can use with a client that you want to bring them to an end result is you use the word imagine. Because already
Sure.
they start imagining.
Mhm.
Well, it brings up an interesting thing too that I'm going to go back to Steve Jobs. When he came out with the MP3 player, what was his magic words? His words were 1,000 songs in your pocket.
Correct.
That was it. That was his story. 1,000 songs. It wasn't how many gigabytes or megabytes back then and all that stuff. It was 1,000 songs in your pocket.
And the way he said it, he's on stage and he goes, "What's this pocket in my jeans for?" And then he pulls out the Legos. It's 1,000 songs in the pocket of your jeans. So again, that's a story. Now, I don't know about you, but I think I saw that video, I don't know, 20 years ago. Still remember.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Very
Yep.
Still
powerful
Yep. Yep.
story.
remember.
Yep. Yep.
It's the same thing
That
Very
when they
much.
get.
innovation. I mean, the guy was incredibly innovative, but what can we say in a way that is different? That we're telling a story, that we're showing the results of what we produce, and that somebody can remember it, they get an emotional connection to it, or they get a giggle and they laugh. And then based on that, when the situation presents itself, we're connected and they reach out. And that's
So
what's so important.
okay, so
Sure.
let's throw a monkey wrench into this. Okay, so the monkey wrench, listen, we've all been working with a variety of clients, different types of companies, different sizes, etc., different industries. But the monkey wrench, in my opinion, in all of this is when you run into somebody, and it doesn't have to be the owner or the CEO or whatever. It can be somebody at a higher level position within the company, like an executive VP, for example, or another senior person, and the issue, in my opinion, is ego. When you're
Oh,
dealing with
that thing.
somebody who has, yeah, that thing. When you're dealing with somebody who just has an ego that it causes it literally disrupts the entire everything that we just talked about. Because because the emotion in this case is that person only cares about themselves.
Yes and
The
no.
emotion we've been talking. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead, Aisha.
They don't necessarily care about themselves. They care about winning.
Okay. All right. I'll go
Sometimes
with that.
winning
Sure.
is not necessarily about themselves. If you can paint the picture of winning where they still that the benefit to them and they're winning, they become a lot more receptive. You've got to draw the long-term vision that they're
Okay.
connected to the win. If they're not connected to
Right.
the win and they don't get accolades, they're not interested. But if you can connect them to the win, you can win them over. Because yeah, the ego is really tough. There's two things. Ego is either connected to
Definitely.
winning or they're connected to fear. And you've got to turn the fear around.
Very true.
Okay. I agree with the winning side. You're right. I mean, but I will also I'm also going to suggest that the person who's egocentric is also going to be a problem with the emotion. Now, the question in this case is the emotion fear, or is this emotion about being part of the winning team, or making sure that the win is tied to that person, right? And if it's that the win is going to be tied to that person, we're also suggesting that person is still thinking about themselves. And so,
Sure. Yeah.
one way or another, right? The fear factor, you're right, Rochelle. The question is, can you twist the fear factor in the egocentric person to something that's somewhat positive? In this
I
ces,
just
the
told you what's the
win.
magic word. I gave you the magic word, the $1,000,000 word.
Right? All you need is
Imagine.
love.
No,
What?
imagine. They're
Oh, imagine.
Right.
they're
Okay.
thinking gloom and doom and da 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 da. They're in like their own
Right.
thing. It's not going to work. I mean, they don't want to change. They don't want, they're resistant, resistant, resistant. And then you have to start creating a different picture for them. And the most important word, I just think in the sales vocabulary, is imagine. And then if you can start saying, imagine what, the accolades you're going to receive when, and then you want to know what the winning outcome is. When da da da
Right.
da 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 happens, all of a sudden they're not quite as resistant.
Yeah, because
Imagine,
now
Yeah.
it's their idea. You converted into it's their idea that they came up with this
Right.
plan, and so they're the rock star. Even though you really did all the heavy lifting,
doesn't matter.
they get the W.
Right. And that's all they're interested in anyway,
Right.
at
At
the
the
end
end of
of
the
the
day, they want the W. They don't want to do any of the work. I made that
day.
decision, and there you go.
So, how are we
Right.
going to wrap up today? What are some of the takeaways that we are kind of thinking about so that so people can kind of walk away and kind of pinpoint something that they can use? Freddie, what's your thoughts for this week?
Really, embedding stories with your customers because now it's a story that is relatable because it involves the customer and the outcome that you've helped transform that customer by what you do.
Melih, what about yourself? What's something that you're taking away with
Yeah, I'm
today?
gonna go with your brand is a sales tool and use it. In other words, you have to create that marketing foundation.
100%. And I'm going to go with, what am I going to go with today? I want you
What do you
to
think?
ask yourself when you present your business, are you storytelling or boring telling? And when you
Okay.
present your outcomes, start with the word imagine. That word imagine is worth millions.
Yep.
Most definitely. So this was a great show, guys. And let's face it, business is constantly evolving, it's constantly changing. And at the end of the day, this is going to be the end for this week's Business Lunatics. Thanks for joining in with our loonies, Steve, Rochelle, and Melih. Hit follow, subscribe, join our show for next week, where we have no fluff, no BS, just business madness. Thank you very much for tuning in.
See you guys.